If you want to become a great jazz pianist, you're going to need to learn how to tackle chord voicings and movement over different types of progressions. Hey, it's Tobey here from JazzMentl.com. Thanks for joining me for another one of my tutorials. In this video, we're going to take a look at the tune Danny Boy. It's an Irish folk song. Pretty simple as the progression goes, which makes it a little bit easier to tackle reharmonization. And I'm going to take a look at 5 different progressions. Each one of them has its own sound, its own flavor, and every one of them sounds great. So if you were to learn these, then definitely it's going to add to your abilities to make great jazz sounds on the piano. Let's dive in and get started with progression number 1. This one is right off the top of the tune, and it is based on the 6th diminished scale. And so we're focused really just right to here, just the first couple of bars. Actually, this is a pickup measure. And so typically the melody would go like this. Pretty simple, 5-1. But we're going to put in the 6th diminished scale on the melody. It's very easy to do that when you've got melody notes that ascend a specific scale. In this case, the E flat 6 diminished scale. If we were to actually look at this 6 diminished scale on E flat, it would be E flat 6, and then to F diminished, again to E flat 6, in this case over G, diminished, you get the idea, so on and so forth. So every other chord is a diminished chord. So let's start on this diminished chord. Interesting that we're starting a tune on a diminished chord, but put down this pedal. So when you play a 6 diminished scale over a pedal note like B flat, it sounds like this. Now you gotta lift up your pedal a little bit because you don't wanna slur the notes too much together. So the interesting thing about this is that you've got this upper movement. So the notes in the bass are basically moving up from B flat up to C. And you've got this anticipated cadence here. It's resolving from this diminished chord, which is again just part of the 6th diminished scale, but instead of going to E flat, we're going to C minor. Basically the same, it's just a different bass note. Let's do it one more time. And I totally get that those chords aren't stacked much. There's just 4 notes in this chord and 3 notes in this one. So you don't need a lot of notes to make great sounds. One more time. Let's keep going with the tune. I'm not going to focus on all of that, but let's take a look at this G minor 11th to A flat major 7. It's the same idea as the B diminished to C, where the bass note is moving up in a half step. Okay, so completely reharmonized. Again, I'm not really going to focus too much on that. It's part of the sheet music that I'll post a link to a little bit later on, and you can download it. All right, let's scroll down and get to the next section. And the second chord progression that I want to focus on is this one right here. So you've got the melody notes that are a little all over the place. And when you have something like that, the 6th diminished scale doesn't really apply because they're really all chord tones in E flat. Except for the last note, of course. So what I like to do in situations like this is add some dissonance by using what we call force. So take a look at the first chord voicing. It's just right out of the E flat major scale. So the key of the moment, and just voice things in force moving down from the melody note. And you get this G minor 7 in force. And then the next chord is also in force, but yet the top interval is the 3rd. Because if you did it in force, you get a sound that sounds like this, which is a little weird. So you don't really want that. You want nice sounds. So here, and then an F9 sus4 chord. And then back to force, to C7 flat 9, All right, let's do that one more time. Now, by itself, it might not sound all that great, but if we were to put it in context with the rest, you would get a sound like this. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so using fourths is a great way to tackle melody notes when there are chord tones in play. So the next one, number 3 that I want to focus on is what comes right after this one. And that is this progression right here. We're going from F all the way through to this E flat. Now the thing that makes this one interesting is not the bass movement, it's the movement of the upper notes in the right hand. A lot of people think that inner voices can be just inside the outside fingers. Really, it's inner voices, but it's just kind of line movement. All right, so what we're gonna do is just play the progression before it. And we're getting to the 2-7 chord. And then what you're gonna do is play this F sharp 11 chord. So what you have is these upper notes ascending in minor seconds till you get back to the melody, and the melody starts here. So that's really inner voices. F sharp 11, this B resolves to the C, and then it's going to the B flat sharp 9 sharp 5 chord. Keep the melody going up, and then you've got 6 diminished. Interesting thing that happens right there on the E flat, you've got this sharp 5 resolving to the 6th, the B to the C again. All right, let's play that whole progression one more time. That's a really good lesson for all jazz pianists when it comes to a cadence like this that's heading back to 1. It's like you've got this upper movement and sometimes downward movement that leads to the destination chord. In this case, the destination chord is E flat. Let's keep playing the tune. Again, I'm going to post a link to the sheet music a little bit later on so you can download it. Listen to that. Now we're just changing one note, the bass note. So that's the next progression, number 4, that I want to focus on. It's this one right here where you've got, starting on the 3-6-2-5, heading typically back to 1. So this would normally be E flat. Instead of going to the root, we're going to put a different type of chord in there. In this case, C7 sharp 9 over B, because what we want to do is we want to trick the audience into thinking, oh, we're not quite done yet. We've got a little bit more jazz sound to make before we resolve things. So let's do this progression. Typically it's 3-6-2-5. So instead of G minor to C7 to F minor to B flat 7 to E flat, we're going to change by starting on C minor and then use a tritone substitution of F7. So from C minor to F7, we're using B7 sharp 11 instead, and then F minor 9, and then B flat 7 with a flat 9. And then instead of going to E flat, we're going to go here. Great sound. I think the reason why that B7 sharp 11 works so well is because the melody note is the sharp 11. See, when I just hit it, Chordy says, oh, we're adding a sharp 11. Cool, but it's actually the melody note which makes that chord progression sound great. And then instead of going to E flat, we're going to go here and then resolve it slightly So instead of going back to E flat, we could resolve it to E flat, but we're going to go to 5, or basically F minor 7 over B flat, and then head to the next progression. And this is the last one, number 5, that I wanted to focus on. It's this one right here. And the thing that makes this one sound cool is we've had this one before where you're resolving this B to this C. So from C minor major 7 to C, like this. Just changing one note. But leading up to that, we've got notes that go upwards in motion. And before we get to the chord that we're sustaining into C minor, we've got this really rich chord here, which is, Chordy says it's B7 sharp 9 over D, but really it's based on a diminished chord, which is E flat diminished. So we got the melody notes on the outside, and then we're adding one more note here, the B natural, just to add more dissonance. Great sound. All right, let's play those last progressions beginning at bar 12, and then we're going to go to the end of the tune just to hear some other things. And again, I'll post a link to the sheet music in just a moment. Of course, a lot of different types of progressions are happening in this tune. It's a complete reharmonization. But what I really wanted to do is focus on those 5 different types of progressions that you can start to add, not just to Danny Boy, but to many other jazz standards as well. As promised, let me post a link to the sheet music up here in the corner. Go check that out. And also a thumbs up on the video and a subscribe would really help the channel. And if you'd like to hear the complete Danny Boy recording that I did at the grand piano, using these types of progressions, you can go check that video out right here.